You will turn in your Bible, Psalm chapter 119. 119. Psalm 119. We're talking about establishing or rebuilding the foundations. One of the major foundations to be rebuilt in the lives of God's people is the institution of God's favor. When a man's ways please the Lord, God will make even his enemies to be at peace with him. Things that have been warring against you and fighting against you, God knows how to just cause the fighting to stop, cease, and desist. And we have looked at a few ways. One was to simply declare favor. Another was to look good or to look for the good and to do good to others. You do good by showing favor yourself. Now we come to another way in Psalm 119 in verse 58. Psalm 119 verse 58. Notice this. I entreated your favor with my whole heart. Be merciful to me according to your word. This is a real simple principle. It is to simply ask for favor with all your heart. Ask for it. Just ask for it. The Bible teaches us in Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 and 8, ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. And then you know the word of the Lord in James chapter 4, verse 2 and 3, where it says that you lust and you have not, you kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. It says you fight and war and yet ye have not because you ask not. You ask and do not receive because you ask amiss or with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures. So you seek favor. You just simply ask God for favor. There's absolutely nothing person just asking God for favor. Lord, give me favor with these individuals. God, give me favor. Just asking for favor. You'll be surprised. You have not because you ask not. If you just ask God for favor on your life. Before you get ready to do something, ask God for favor. Just ask God for favor. Seek favor from the right source. You always seek favor from the right source. Whether you need it from God or man, always seek it from the right. It's not favor if it is a back-scratching situation where you do something for me and I do it for you. That's favor. That's exchange. That's sometimes bribery. But favor is here where you just ask for favor. You just ask for favor. And as a part of your asking, I would always encourage you to include some sacrifice on your part. Always include sacrifice, some sacrifice on your part. Don't expect others to sacrifice to give you something without your sacrificing yourself. So there is some part of sacrifice. God will give you all of himself only under the condition that we give him all of ourselves. When you sacrifice, if you actually give something, make a sacrifice, that is actually doing something as a part of your asking for favor. Make a sacrifice unto the Lord. There are particular memorial offerings that people give, and it's a sacrifice on their part. And if God tells you to do something that is a sacrifice on your behalf, do it. Obey God, and you will see results. I'm just telling you, has anybody ever sacrificed something and you saw results that came. Look around at folks testifying. We're not just saying something. Just look around at the people's hands just testifying, because they did a sacrifice and God honored that. I don't care whether it was going on a fast. I don't care whether it was a financial offering that God told them, a sacrifice of their time, a sacrifice of some pleasure that he asked them to forego, or that they voluntarily just gave up and said, God, I'm going to sacrifice this for you. God honors sacrifice. He really does. He honors sacrifice. He's true to his word. He said to present yourselves, your bodies, as a living sacrifice. And when you sacrifice, there is something that happens. And just remember this principle, that the greater the sacrifice, the greater the blessing. The greater the sacrifice, the greater the blessing. There are things that are talked about in Kings, where there sacrifice. Kings chapter 3, verses 4 and 5, verse 9 through 13, where sacrifice was, there was incredible blessing and favor that came from God. In 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 4 and 5, it talks about the sacrifice. And as we sacrifice something, God begins to move powerfully on convenience, your time, your talent, your money, because sacrifice actually brings you into favor with God. Sacrifice can bring you into favor, but then you sacrifice something, and it's a blessing. Sometimes the sacrifice may be of your sleep. Well, you just sacrifice sleeping, and you get up early in the morning and get on your knees before God. God honors sacrifice. God honors sacrifice. There's no two ways to look at it. God honors sacrifice. Tell your neighbor that. God honors sacrifice. He really does. God honors sacrifice. Here's another way. It is to bless somebody who is blessed. You can actually get favor on your life by blessing someone who's already blessed. Now, I know that might seem paradoxical to some of you to say, well, why would you who's already blessed? Somebody, maybe I should give it to somebody who really needs it. Jesus taught us this principle. He says, to him that hath, more shall be given. And to him that hath not, even that which he has shall be taken away from him. You bless somebody who is already blessed, and what happens is that their favor then comes on you. Am I just saying that, or do we have some type of scriptural precedent for that? Look in your own Bibles, Genesis chapter 12. I want to just make something up to you. Genesis chapter 12. Notice here where God was speaking with Abraham. He was still Abram at this time. But in Genesis chapter 12, notice here verse 1. Now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country and from your family and from your house. I will make you a great nation. Now notice this. I'm going to bless you, Abram. I'm going to make you great, and you shall be a blessing. I'm going to bless you, and you shall be a blessing. And notice what he says in verse 3. I will bless those who bless you. I'm going to bless those who bless you. And I will curse him. And in you, Abram, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. But I'm going to bless those who bless you. If you do kindness to somebody who's already blessed, God says that I'll let their blessing come on you. I will bless those who bless you. Do you know that when you serve God and when your ways please the Lord, if somebody blesses you, that the blessings that are on your life, God will begin to give a portion of that blessing to their life? You will honestly be surprised. You'll be surprised. And see, our natural human mind will tell us, why don't we just give this to somebody who really needs it? But favor will come in an uncompromising way when you bless those who have the blessings of God on it. And you know that many times in 2 Kings chapter 4, Elisha the prophet, his dealing with the widow woman and having her to bake him a curse. She sowed into somebody else who had favor in their life, who had the blessings of God, the anointing of God, and then the blessing that was in his life actually blessed her life. It blessed her life. This woman had sown into his life. She built her house for him. And the blessings of God came because she was barren. And he said nothing for her. She never asked for anything. But she sowed, she made an investment into his life, and God opened up her womb and fulfilled her dreams that she had not even articulated. But he did it just because she sowed into somebody who was already blessed. Already blessed. And the favor came down on her life. And so when we begin blessing the Lord, is it that we bless him because he needs it so desperately? I don't think so, but we end up actually getting blessed. If you've ever lifted your hands in worship to God and just forgotten about yourself and all of the issues that are going on in your life and concentrate on him and worship him, do you know that you get blessed, I believe, more than he does? Isn't it amazing that when you bless somebody who really doesn't even need it, that the blessings boomerang in your life? You bless the Lord and we get blessed out of our socks. We're blessing him and his peace fills us. His joy fills us. His love fills us. His healing grace fills us. Here again, if you sow favor, you'll reap favor. You will reap it because you reap what you sow, not what you intended to sow. You reap what you sow. Let me give you another way to get favor into your life. It is to simply submit to someone who has favor. It is simply to submit to someone who has favor in their life. If someone else has favor in their life, then the favor of God can come on your life by submitting to somebody who has favor. Now, if you are submitted to somebody who is cursed, guess what ends up coming into your life? And I've told you about the story of a man. He was sick, been through a whole lot, and he's in the hospital on his deathbed, and he turns to his wife and grabs her hand, and he begins to recount some of all of the things that he has gone through all the days of his life. And he says to her, honey, you were with me when I lost my first job. You were with me when I lost the business. You were with me when I had my first heart attack. You were with me when I received the call that my mother died. And then he turned to her, he said, honey, you are bad luck. But let me tell you, if you're submitted to somebody and they've got curses on their life, it's going to affect you. You know, if you look at certain things in Exodus chapter 12, Exodus chapter 12 and verse 36. You notice here that the children of Israel had been submitted to the Egyptians. And notice that the Lord had given the people favor. Say favor. The Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians to whom they were subject. They were submitted to the Egyptians. So they granted them what they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. That's where they got all of that gold. When they came out, they didn't come out broke. It ought to be good news to you that when God brings you out of your bondage, he's not bringing you out empty-handed. You ought to get paid for your trouble. They plundered the wealth of Egypt. They had worked there for hundreds of years, free of charge, and God let them get paid on their way out. They borrowed it with a no-return policy. But see, they were submitted to them. You submit to someone who has favor, and the favor can then come on your life. You submit to them. I mean, notice Genesis chapter 16. Genesis chapter 16. Notice Genesis chapter 16 and verse 7. Genesis chapter 16 And notice what happens in verse 7 through 11. Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water. This is Hagar, Sarah's handmaiden. And he found her by a spring of water in the wilderness on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarah's handmaid, where have you come from and where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarah. And the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. You know why? Because there's a blessing that comes through submission. And then the angel said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. But he was saying, listen, honey, I'm going to bless you. Go back and submit yourself to that woman. I know she's hard, but go back and submit yourself. Did you know a blessing? Bridle your tongue and go back and submit to where God has placed you. May I tell you that God will put you into some places that are not always comfortable? If you're going to get developed somewhere, it's not going to be a comfortable place. Anything that brings development to you, anything that brings growth to you is not going to be a comfortable place. But the angel of the Lord stopped her in her way when she was running away because she couldn't stand that woman that was hard on her and unfair in her eyes. That she was despised and abused then. God says, go back and submit yourself. Go back and submit yourself, because your blessing, your place of appointing is also your place of anointing. And so you don't run because you get irritated, you leave because you get finished. And so he sent her back. He was simply saying to her, you go back and submit yourself to her, because her blessing was connected with her. Because she was carrying the woman's husband's seed. She was a surrogate for Abraham. And there was something that she needed to be around Abraham, because she needed to be able to get the blessing because of the seed that she was carrying. And so that there comes a submission, that this was a boss. And he said, go back and return and be submitted to your boss. The Bible talks about Ephesians chapter 5, about wives submitting to husbands and husbands submitting to wives. You do realize that it works both ways. He talks about he's saying, submitting yourselves to one another in the fear of God. I have to say that because, I know men love to, whip women over the head. Your Bible says you're supposed to submit to me. But it says submitting yourselves to one another. But because let me tell you this, if the submission is only a one-way submission, somebody's not going to be happy. So there's a submission to bosses or employers, but then there's a submission to your spouse. There's a submission to your spouse. When you get married, you don't just do what you want to do. Now, let me tell you this. What helps us to work through challenges, particularly in relationship? Two things: maturity and security. The more mature that a person is, and the more secure that a person is, the faster they work through conflict. Are you listening? Maturity and security. When you deal with insecure people, you got a mess on your hand. When you're dealing with insecure folks and immature, if they are immature and insecure, you're going to have some real serious dramatic issues. But what helps you to be able to work through problems far easier is when people are mature and they are secure. Go talk to grandmas who've been married for a long time. Mature people and secure people. Where he going? Don't nobody want him. I'm telling you, if they are mature and secure, I'm telling you, there are issues, they don't even have to deal with it. I mean, you just don't find grandma and grandpa just at each other's throat, the way you find young people. And when they got the knife in them and beat up and, they got to pull a hat. You're not going to find your grandmama like that. And let me tell you, I mean, my granddaddy was a pistol day. Now, by the time I was old enough to remember, the tables had turned. Grandma was the boss. My granddaddy he was just a honey-do person. She just ordered him around like he was a little child. And he was just as quiet, just meek and as humble. He really was. The tables had turned. You know why? Maturity and security. age, men don't even deal with the macho issues anymore. What are you talking about? See, grandma got half chin. But there is a blessing that comes when you are able to submit yourself one to another. It takes maturity and security to do that. Maturity and security. The less mature that people are and the less secure they are, the more drama and issues that you'll have. I mean, some people, for some of you, that is your whole message tonight. I mean, that was worth it, your whole coming. You just got it just through that. The Bible talks about it in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 17, submitting yourselves to those who are over you in the Lord. There's a blessing that comes through the submission. There's a blessing that comes through. Talks about it in James chapter 4 and verse 7. Submit yourselves therefore unto God. To the degree that we are submitted, there's always a blessing that comes. When you submit yourself to God, here's the blessing that comes. Submit yourselves therefore unto God. Here's the blessing. Resist ye the devil and he will flee from you. The blessing that comes from submitting to God is that you will have power to resist the devil and he'll flee from you. You only have power or authority to resist the devil to the degree that your life is submitted to God. You can't just rebuke and resist the devil if you are not properly submitted to God. The devil, you know what the devil will do? He'll say, Peter I know, and Paul I know, Jesus I know, but who are you? Our authority over demonic things comes by our submission to God. Submit yourselves therefore unto God, then resist the devil, and then the devil will flee from you. And so there is we get blessed through the submission. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 13 through 15 talks about submission to civil authority. Submission to civil authority. Otherwise we are a total chaotic society. But we have moral and Christian responsibility to be properly submitted to civil authority. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 5 talks about submission to elders. Talks about submission to elders. You know, and this is where the older women teach younger women and older men teach younger men. That's a submission to eldership. And we get blessed through that submission. Submission is a place of covering. Children in Ephesians are told to submit themselves to their parents. Children get blessed through their submission to their parents. If they come out of their submission to their parents, their lives are in danger. The moment that a child gets involved in rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Rebellion opens the door for demonic activity to start happening. It gives permission or place to the devil whenever a person becomes rebellious. So through the lack of submission, submission causes us to be blessed because parents protect their children as their children are properly submitted to them. I used to do ministry years ago with a lady in my high school. Of course, she wasn't in high school. She's a grown woman. She's probably in her 30s. And I started back in the 70s, every single month. And I did prison ministry with this lady. She was hit by 4 cars and dragged by 3. As a result, she had a metal rod in her leg. She had a plastic stomach. There was various issues. And she told me, she said, every time that I got hit by a car, she said, I was someplace in disobedience to my parents. She said, I was doing something that directly to defy my parents' instructions to me. And each time I was hit by a car, 4 that hit her, knocked her on the other side of the street, and an 18. She was in a coma for a solid year. And when she came out, she began singing the song, and she'd open up in the prison singing this song, It Took a Miracle. And God miraculously brought her back out of a coma after being in a coma for a solid year. She yielded to his way. You know, you got a hard head, God has a way of flattening us out. Had a hard head, and the Lord had to let a truck run over her head and flatten it, and it swelled up for a year, and then he brought out, he said, you ready to cooperate now? I'm just telling you that there's a blessing that comes through submission.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.